This is going to be episode 2 of my new little series, Let's Chat. I want to talk about YouTube, accountability, body doubling, and building community. This is turning into a video about my writing journey. So I guess that's what we're doing. We're doing a video about my writing journey. So when I first started YouTube, I started my channel as a reading channel, and I was very intent on reading more, and it was around the pandemic time when we were in lockdown for the very first time in the UK, and I thought I have a lot more time to read right now. I want to read more, and I don't have a commute to read. Although I have more time, I have less moments where I can dedicate that time to read. So I wasn't commuting anymore, and before I would be reading during my commute. So when I started YouTube, the idea was that I would have to read because I would be held accountable by making videos, by saying I'm going to be reading this, this and that. But I had started writing before starting my channel. But these two hobbies, writing and reading, are two hobbies that I posed around similar times. When I started university, I stopped reading a lot. I used to read a lot in high school, and then university started and I felt like I didn't have as much time because everything I needed to read was for university classes, and so I stopped sort of reading fiction as much. And when it comes to writing, I was still writing in university. I remember writing like a zombie post-apocalyptic book while studying for my exams, which was obviously a great distraction away from my exams. But I wrote when I was in undergrad, and then I didn't write when I was in postgrad. And then I joined a workplace. And during my first 3 years of working while in London, I did not write at all. I did read more actively during my commute. I started reading more fiction again. I was working in publishing, but in magazines, so it had nothing to do with books, but I was still very much interested in reading fiction. So I started reading again during my commute. And then I changed jobs after those 3 years. I had my second job, and it's during my second job that I had a complete mental breakdown. During my second job is when I developed quite a bit of anxiety and at certain points depression. And when I was going through the worst of those times, that job was horrible in terms of the people, to be honest. And the only thing that was keeping me afloat mentally was that I started writing again. And I would write during downtimes, during work hours, like on the side. No one would be able to see. I was writing in French. I was writing my very first book, which I did finish, which was all in French. And it was about a teenager who discovered she was a witch and would get help from her two mysterious aunts to develop her powers. And she had to become friends with her enemy from school, the mean girl, and who also turned out to be a witch. It was a whole thing. It had a whole thing about like dream sequences and walking through dreams. And she had like a guardian angel type of person protecting her. It was very Leo coded from Charmed. But anyway, and I don't hate the book, but I had to shelf it. I tried to revise it, and it was a painful journey. And it took me a little while to realize the reason why it wasn't going to work is because it was the book I needed to get out of my system, but not the book I wanted to actually publish. But after it was out of my system is when I started writing for real, I want to say. I'm not discounting this as not for real. I think the thing it taught me was that I was able to finish a book. I was able to finish a first draft, and I was also capable of trying and revising it, and it just did not work out for that book. But it taught me a little bit more about craft. But because the revision process was so hard for me, so difficult, I wanted to find the fun in writing again, and I felt like I had lost it from that. I needed to go back to zero drafting something, to the very beginning of writing, which I've always found to be the most fun part. And especially when I first started, I was definitely a pantser. So I had a sudden idea, which I thought was going to be, this is just for me, no one else is going to read this. And it was super fucking big, but I had a very basic outline in bullet point form on a piece of paper. It was literally like here's the beginning, here's sort of like what happens as a conflict in the middle, and then here's the end. Super basic. And I started writing it, and then I realized, holy shit, I actually think this is good, and this shouldn't be just for me. I actually want other people to read this. So I changed my mind midway. I was revising as I went. I was becoming a headlines writer. I was very much like changing things as I went through the writing process. I would be like, I'm in chapter 14 or whatever. Let me go back and revise all 14 of those chapters because I know now what's going to happen in chapter 15 and 16, and this doesn't fit anymore in this instance. So I would be a headlines writer. So you only see a bit of the road as you go, but you don't see the whole road. So the thing that I learned at the time was sort of what I wanted was important. What I expected this book to become was going to be important from the beginning, and I didn't waste any time. I don't feel like I did. It was just my learning process, and it was a longer process for this book because one, I was pensing it, and two, I was discovering what felt good in terms of writing for me, how much input I wanted before I started putting pen to paper, how much I wanted to outline versus how much I wanted to revise while I went, etc. It was all a discovering process, and in my head I thought, this is my process. I'm a penser. This is how I write. Obviously now I don't even consider myself a penser anymore, but this was the first book I wrote in English, and one of my main fears was very much, is this any good at all? I can't tell. I felt like the story was good, the plot was good, and I felt like the prose was very weak, and I couldn't figure out how to make it any better because English is not my first language. And obviously I had been living in English for years, and I had been writing emails to clients or whatever for several years, but I had never been writing fiction, like a whole entire story. And that's a different process. That's a different way of using language. And I was terrified that it was just absolutely terrible. And that's when I realized I needed community. So one of the first things I tried for community was that I found some people on Instagram. And at the time, I did end up joining a group for a little while where we would try and meet up on Instagram lives for a couple of times, you know, a month, and just do some exercises, almost like prose exercises, try to get better, showcase one of our chapters and discuss it with other people. It was very brief, but it was a good first foray into it. I want to say it was the first time that I tried that, and I did enjoy it at the time. I think a lot of those people unfortunately did not keep in touch, and so the group itself was not solid enough. You just don't always find your people straight away. Like, it might take a hot minute. So Instagram was not it for me. And then I started talking a little bit about writing this book on my YouTube channel, and I realized there was a whole other side of YouTube that I hadn't really discovered or explored yet at all, which was AuthorTube or WriterTube or whatever you want to call it, but not BookTube. WriterTube, essentially. People who were writing on YouTube and were talking about the writing journey. I did know one thing, which was that if you're talking about your writing on YouTube, your audience is not going to be your readers, it's going to be other writers who might be your readers as well, but it's not the main goal of it. The main goal and purpose of having a YouTube channel where you talk about your writing is it's going to attract other people who want to hear about your journey, and these people are often writers themselves. And then I got lucky. I was trying to find channels that were doing sprints, and I had initially found a lot of people doing live sprints for reading. I accidentally found writing live sprints. They were done by Jessica on the Hex Library, and she was doing them in tandem with Kate Cavanaugh, so they were doing them together. And I can't remember, I think they had like a monthly chat about something, but the one I joined just talked about the troublemakers because they were about to organize NaNoWriMo. I think I joined in December of some year, and they were talking about doing the equivalent of NaNoWriMo but in January because it was a better month for a lot of people. And I realized I was about to revise for the very first time my zero draft of The Art of Submitting Demons. So I thought I should join this so that I could do it all in 1 month and finally get a bit more productive about it. So I joined the Discord of the troublemakers, and that's when I found my writing community, the people that were gonna help me be accountable and actually continue writing and share my work and exchange work with other people, etc. the writing community we all freaking need. And this is something when I first started writing The Art of Summoning Demons, I did not think I needed. It wasn't so much I didn't think I needed it, it was more I couldn't figure out how to find it. I couldn't figure out how am I going to find a writing community. I don't want to try and find people in my city, in freaking London, who are also writing. All I could think of was extremely judgmental people who were gonna hate my work, and I felt terrified at the idea of sharing anything, even though I wanted to publish it. It was a weird dichotomy of, on the one hand, I want this to be published, on the other hand, I want to be completely anonymous and never share this with anyone. Both of those things can't work together, obviously, so I had a little bit of internal work to do about sharing my work, and I think rebranding my channel to become a writing channel helped me through that, as well as joining the writing community of the Troublemakers. So there's one thing, which is meeting like-minded people and finding critique partners and beta readers. For me, it happened because one, I was quite active in the chats and I decided to talk about my writing with other people and just talk about random shit because it was all about building friendship as well. And then my friend Stig invited me to co-host on one of his live stream with two other people, Hudson and Anna, and that is essentially how I met my critique partners. We sort of figured out we had a lot in common, and you want to meet people that are going to be sort of like you in a way, because you want to be able to trust them with your writing at the very early stages as well. But the point remained that it was necessary for me to share my work, and building community was how I was going to do it. So yes, I got really lucky, but then I also did the groundwork. I was also at some point actively trying to find people that I was going to be able to share my work with and who I would want to read the work of as well. Now, the second thing that this journey brought me was also making my channel a lot more about my writing and a lot less about my reading. Being able to talk about it, being able to talk to you guys about the journey and what it's like and share the struggles of it, but also the happy moments and the victory moments of this whole writing journey has been absolutely fantastic. To me, these are already two very important aspects of writing communities, and I think as someone who does not have friends who write in real life, as in people that I met before and then turns out we both write, it was so necessary to be able to talk with others about the writing process, and having people that I could chat with about this who may live in a completely different country, miles and miles away from me, but still, having those people was so darn important, even just for my mental health, because I feel like I would have given up on writing after a while if I had still been isolated in it. 3, it's helped me build my confidence so much, and I think not only do I generally feel like a better writer now because I've written more than just the one book in English now, and so I feel like I've improved a lot when it comes to my writing style, my prose, even my plotting, everything. I feel more like an outliner now, but I also think you can't just have yourself as a sounding board. You need other people to do that for you. So at one point or another, you have to share your work with others, and that will in fact be helpful and help you build up your confidence and not just give you the feeling of this is so terrifying and I never want to do this again. Now, again, I'm quite lucky. I met people who we understand each other about how to talk to one another, and also they're my friends, so I know when they say something, it's out of love. It's not being mean, it's not criticizing for the sake of it. There's always an underlying reason of this is to help you make this book the best book possible. But it's like riding a bicycle, right? When you fall off, you have to get back on it. And I think that's the main lesson I've learned from sharing my work when it was difficult, when I did get feedback that was hard to receive. The main thing I learned was get back on the fucking bicycle, and you will learn how to write better, faster, without falling again. And then finally, the fourth thing that I feel like this journey has brought me is the streaming. In general, I feel like this has been so helpful for me because one, it's also a question of confidence, being able to chat to people in the comments when you're not sure anyone's even gonna show up. It's quite difficult, so you need to build up a little bit of confidence. But also when it comes to accountability, I think building a routine is so important when it comes to writing if you want to do it in a way that produces an actual book. In order to achieve that, I need to be consistent and I need to continuously do the work. And it can be really difficult when you have a 9 to 5:30 because no one actually has a 9 to 5. I don't know why we call them that. I used to have a 9 to 6 and now it's a 9 to 5:30. Thank fuck. But essentially, you have to find your routine, what works for you, the moments you can write, when you're the most productive, when you're at your best in terms of your mental state to write, depending on what you're doing. The point is that I have to make myself accountable, I have to be consistent, I have to do the work. And the best way that I have found for me to do the work is to attend streams and make those streams myself. Which is why on this channel I have been a little bit more consistent. I have been streaming twice a month. On 2 Thursdays of the month. I try to do the middle ones usually, unless I have plans already planned in for one of those Thursdays. And then I'm also a co-host at least twice a month on my friend Steek's channel. So I essentially will have at least 4 weeks when I have 2 to 3 hours where I'm gonna be doing work for my writing. I personally take a lot of pleasure in having been productive for myself when it comes to doing something that is not for my day job, but for me. I feel so great about it when I've done something productive for me. So I feel like doing live streams makes perfect sense in order to achieve that. And I feel like having at least once a week a live stream that you're going to be able to attend even from the chat or be a co-host on or be the main host on is really, really helpful for that accountability. So I feel like these are all the ways in which YouTube has been super helpful for me as a writer and why I really enjoy making videos and talking to you guys. So looking back at this journey, I started writing in French around 2018, I want to say, and then in English around 2019, I think. And it is now 2025, so I've been writing in English for 6 years and writing in general for 7. And I'm still in the process of trying to publish that very first book I wrote in English, and it's changed so many times now. There's been quite a few drafts of it. But the journey takes however long the journey needs to take, and that's how I see it. It's not gonna happen overnight. For some people, it will happen faster than for others. For me, there was a lot to learn in terms of my confidence level, my prose in English, and even just how to plot properly. Where I am at now, I feel a lot better about my writing than I did when I first started the journey, but I also do feel sometimes the frustration of, I've been doing this for 6 years, where is it going? And I think that's okay. Sometimes you gotta admit your aspirations, your dreams, what you would like out of something you're doing, and to me, it's not just a hobby, it's a hobby with a goal, and that goal is to get something published one day. I'm very, very grateful for this community, and I'm very, very grateful for you guys watching this video. So if you like that kind of content, I will do more of it. I have been trying to do more Let's Chat videos like this one, and I will continue to do so. I will try to keep them short. So on this note, please leave a like on this video, leave a comment down below. I will try to respond to you. And if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing to my channel, ring that bell, all that jazz, and I'll see you guys in the next one.